Okay. In an assignment closing, there's only one closing. There's not two closing. There's a seller. There's you who initially had the right to buy this house, and then you assign your contract to your buyer. You are now outside of the outside of the picture. There's just two parties left: the seller and the buyer. Okay, in that transaction. So in that case, there's only one deed. The seller deeds the house to the buyer. The buyer, gets their funding, and the title companies pay the seller and pays you for your assignment fee. Okay. You cannot do assignments with buyers that are using conventional loans or FHA loans or subprime loans, any of those type of bank loans. You can do assignments if your buyer's using cash, hard money lenders, private lenders, lines of credit, commercial loan. Okay, it's not your residential conventional loan. Okay, in a case where it's a residential conventional loan, you would have to use another strategy that I call release of equitable interest, which is where you charge, because what happens is, here's the reason why you can't you can't do assignment on a conventional loan, because in an assignment fee, your fee is charged to the buyer. Okay, your fee is charged to the buyer, and the mortgage company, they look through all of the lines, all of the fees that are being charged to the buyer, and if they see any fee that looks suspicious or like an assignment fee, then they would not fund that deal, because they are thinking that the buyer is trying to pull out money. Okay.
But a realtor could say that it was not.
Oh yeah. If you're a real estate agent, you can claim as a commission. Yeah. So that's when you're an agent, this is why there's a benefit that goes in with having a real estate agent's license, So in a release of equitable interest, here's what you're doing. Whenever you have a contract on a house, you have equity in that house. You have equitable interest in that house. And so what you want to do is you want to charge a seller a fee to release that interest so the seller can close with the buyer. Okay, it's like a fee to release your contract with the seller, and seller close with the buyer. So the way you would do it, so that way the seller is really not paying you a fee, is, let's say you had originally agreed to buy that house from the seller at $100,000. Okay, so you tell it, look, seller, you're going to get your $100,000, you're going to get your $100,000. Let me slow this down. So the first contract is that you tell the seller they're going to get $100,000, and the contract price is $100,000. Okay. So when you need to come back, because your buyer, once you find a buyer and you found out the buyer's using a conventional loan, you need to come back and tell the seller, look, seller, I have good news and bad news. The good news is we are ready to close on this deal. Okay. And the bad news, which is really not a bad news, not a big deal at all. It's just that we are closing under my, we are closing with another associate of mine because I'm already tapped out of money to close on this deal personally, but one of my associates is going to close on it, and so we need to change the contract name to the to my associate's name. Okay, and it depends on the case. Like if it's an owner-occupant buyer, then I'll tell them straight out that, hey, this is my owner-occupant buyers. But if it's a landlord buyers, I just call them as my associates because they close with us all the time. Okay, so it depends on what type of buyers there, and how much money is involved too. But so what was it? Okay, so yeah, so you tell your seller So you're going to put it under the buyer's name, and it's no big deal. However, we do need to change the sales price of the contract to 110 instead of 100,000. Seller, don't worry, you're still going to get your $100,000, but we're just going to write a contract for 110 because the buyer needs to pull out some money for holding costs and management fee, which is your fee, holding costs and management fee. So you then and so you can then invoice the seller for that $10,000 to release your interest off of that property. Okay. In cases where it's like $5,000-$10,000, it's like you really can explain it to them. However, it doesn't matter. I've done cases where that fee is a whole lot more, like 40, 50 grand. Then that's when I have to explain more. This is my associate. It's putting this money out to fix up the house, to pay for closing costs, pay for management fees, things of that nature. No, this happens at closing. Yeah, from the title company. So now, so you don't turn your invoice into the to the seller. You turn your invoice into the title company. And this works even on FHA loans. Yeah, it appears on the seller side of the HUD, and it appears as a payoff of lien, because you are I mean, it depends on the title company. Some of them, because they type in what they want that description to be. I like them to describe it as a payoff of lien, because it's not a recorded lien, but it is a cloud on the title that you have an interest in this house. You have contract on this house, and now you're releasing that contract. Makes payable to whatever your company's name that you want. Right. On the seller side. Yeah, that's the key. The key is it goes on the seller side, not the buyer side. Because if it goes on the buyer side, that's when it blows the deal up. Because the mortgage company looks on the buyer side. They don't care as much on the seller side. Oh, you know what? Mike. I forget.
Hello?
Flip
Hello?
this.
Is that good? Up? Is it on? All right. Yeah, you need to get the seller on board with that $20,000 increase.
Right. No, but you just explain to them, like, look, the net to you is going to be the same. We're ready to close on this deal. You're going to get the money that we promised you. Okay? The only thing that we need to change is that we need to update the contract for a higher price, so that way my buyer or my associate can can have money for holding costs and repairs and things of that nature. But I have never had a case where the seller says no to that. Remember, look, put yourself in the shoes of the seller. Okay? You are a motivated seller. You want to sell your house. You need to sell your house. This buyer had, you already agree with the price with this buyer, and now closing time is coming around the corner. You've already spent all of the money that you had in your head, okay? And now he's coming back. He's telling you're getting the same thing. You see, because you are getting the same thing, you're getting the price that you want. You're not going to make a big deal about raising the price, because you already promised to that. And that $20,000 in the eye of the seller, they're not thinking that all of that money is going to you. It's for holding costs, for management fees. So they're not. Then in their mind, they're not thinking it's your fee, so they don't make a big deal about it.
Tim, do you have this form, the release of equitable interest, available for download anywhere on your website?
It's in the forms disk. Yeah, it is available. Let me find out where it is. In your platinum area bonus, it should be on there, right? Yeah. Download that whole forms disk and it's in there.
So the title company will cut you a check, or is it the seller that cuts you a check?
The title company does.
Okay.
Yeah. So like when the title company distribute the money, whatever invoices, liens that needs to be paid off, they'll pay that off first before they cut the seller a check. Okay. You guys all understand that? Okay. Cool.
But the seller never sees the seller never sees your invoice?
It depends on the title company. Some title company will require that the sellers initial the invoice, and some don't. So if they don't, then the seller will never see your invoice. If they do, then yes. But the seller will always see the HUD, so they can see that amount on the HUD, but most of them don't read the HUD, just sign whatever. Right, I mean.
But you have to change the contract with the seller and raise it by 20,000.
Right. That's that phone call comes in, right? It's like, hey, I have good news, and the good news is we're ready to close, but there's just one more thing that we need to do, and this is what we need to do.
Did you have to do this on what type of loan?
You have to do this when the buyer's using a conventional type lender, whether it's like Bank of America or Wells Fargo, Countrywide, like a conventional loan. But to you, it's just a loan. Just think of whenever the buyer's getting a mortgage, getting a loan, then you have to do it. The only time when you don't need to do this would be when the buyer's using cash, hard money, private money, lines of credit, commercial loans. Okay, so if they're using any type of residential loan, you're gonna need to do that.